Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome everyone. I do apologize, we're 1 minute late, but I will wait a couple more minutes so that everyone has time to join, okay? And in the meantime, you can get settled. We have about 1 hour and a half of training. It's okay if you need to leave early, but we have all of this being recorded. So either way, we can send it to you afterwards, okay? Welcome, everyone. Good morning, I guess, right? Me and Victor are in Brazil, so it's good afternoon for us. But for you who are in different time zones, I guess it's good morning, good day, good middle of the week. Victor, can you see my screen okay?
Yes,
Yeah?
we're
Okay.
seeing your screen, yeah.
Great, perfect. Hello, I will just wait a couple of more minutes, okay? And then we can get settled. We can start with our training. But considering that we already have some people here in the event with us, I would like to introduce myself, and Victor can introduce himself as well. So my name is Fernanda. For those, I can already see some familiar faces, okay? So I'm pretty sure some of you used to know me as a CSM for the global accounts here at Pipefy, but now I am a CS trainer. So basically, I am so in love with Pipefy products that I decided to try to train everyone as best as I could, as best as I can, so that they can take like the most that our product has to offer to their advantage, to their processes, and hopefully we'll get to do that with more frequency, with more events. Okay, guys, so hello to those who are joining now. We have here in our Zoom the Q&A button and the chat button as well. Okay, so you can feel free to send anything that you'd like. We usually try to separate these two places, like Q&A is for questions, right? So if you have any questions regarding your product, your processes, regarding our product, and regarding our features like automations, which is the main thing that we're focusing on today, you can send it through our Q&A button, okay? And if you want to interact, if you want to send any feedbacks, suggestions, we are always very open to that, okay? We want to hear from you. We want to hear what will benefit you the most. So you can send it through our chat button as well, okay? Victor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Fer. So hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here. It's a pleasure also to be here with Fer. And currently, I'm a global account growth manager here in Pipefy. I'm in Pipefy for almost 5 years now. I've been on some webinars. I don't know if someone here already know me for some last webinars that I did. I was on the sales and also the modeling team, so I know Pipefy as well as Fer, and it's going to be a nice training.
That's great. Victor knows more than me. He's just being, modest. But we will mostly be focused on automations and some tips regarding what you have told us. Okay, so the main goal of this training, let me just get to what's important, right? We already have some people here. So the main goal of our training is to go over some tips on automation so that you can understand the whole scope that we have here within Pipefy. Okay, so mainly I will be the one presenting and Victor will be more focused on your questions. So don't be shy. You can send anything that you want through our Q&A button or through our chat button as well, okay? So most of you, I believe, have participated in our form, right? So I have it here just so I can show you, which is what you answered before you joined this training, right? So this was a way that we tried to hear from you before we taught you, right? So we just wanted to know, like, which department do you use Pipe for mainly, right? We believe that most of you use for more than one department, but there is one that, for example, is your exemplary use case here in Pipefy. And we wanted to know if you knew the basics of automations, which automations did you use? If you wanted to learn more about the possibilities of events and of actions, right? So we have here mainly everything that we needed to know from you, so we could basically decide what is more valuable for your processes. Okay. So we should get right to it. Like I said, feel free to interact and send any questions that you'd like. Okay, we're gonna be here for a while. This is a special event, right? So you can consider this your very own open office hour. I will get to this event later on. I will tell you everything that we have inside of Pipefy that is focused on your adoption and of your usage of the product. So we have many events that can teach you everything that you would like to know about Pipefy. But this space that we have here right now is just you and me, you and those people here. I mean, like everyone that is here, you can send your own questions regarding your own processes, okay? We will do our best to answer them. And if we can't, we will look for someone who can, okay? There is no such thing as no answers here, all right? So basically, what are automations inside of Pipefy? Most of you already know, but just so we can go over the logic, right? So the automations are a way for you to replace the manual tasks that you have in your processes. How? You can trigger an event that will consequently result in an action. So this way you can streamline basically every step in your process, and you can increase your team's productivity, right? You can think, for example, I have a team member that spends over half an hour sending emails to my to the other employees, right? From an HR processes. You can think of the most simple example in automation usage. I would like to send that same email with, of course, personalized information of every employee at the same time. So an action that would take at least 30 minutes will take you less than 30 seconds. All right, so you just need to set up an automation and that will run by itself. You won't ever need to worry about that email again. It's sending without you having to think about it, okay? So that is how it works. An event and action logic. So something very specific needs to happen in your pipe, in your process, right? So that a predefined action can occur automatically. So for example, this email that I just told you from my HR process is sent every Monday, or it is sent every 10th of every month, or it is sent every time that someone receives a paycheck, right? So something needs to happen. I can determine this event, and my action will be sending this email to every employee of mine, right? Just so I can make everything clear here, you guys can ask for different examples, okay? I'm just off the top of my mind, I'm thinking about use cases that you have sent us. I have studied this form over and over and again, and I really liked your answers, okay? So I will try to focus my examples of automations here based on what you have told me, on what most of you have told me, right? So if you, for example, want, and if I'm showing you one automation in specific and you want to know how to use that in a finance product, in the finance process, for example, you can send that in our Q&A button, and then we can think of an example to show you, all right? So I would also like to tell you that every time an automation is triggered or verified, Pipefy counts that as an automation job. So the automation jobs are basically when the trigger is verified. So the event will happen, that automation job is counted, okay? We have different plans and different limits to the automations, right? There's also like the possibility of adding packages and add-ons, but this is just so you guys are aware of the differences, right? I thought it was very important for me to highlight here that our goal is to show you the benefits, so that we can optimize your routine and mainly solve your questions, okay, to make the processes more efficient. All right, let me just drink some water here so we can get started, because this part right now is important. Let's do it. Okay, so basically we have different options of events, and you can use these for your benefits, right? So you have when a card enters a phase, when the field is updated, when a card is created, a recurring activity, when an alert is triggered, when a card leaves a phase, when an email is received, and when connected cards are moved to a phase. And each event usually defines something, right? So for example, if a card enters a phase, that just means that a new step of the process is beginning, right? But when a card is created, that is exactly when the process begins, right? So what's the difference between, for example, the card being created and the card entering a phase? If it enters the first phase, then it's created, right? So once a card is created, it already enters the first phase of the process. But if a card enters at the final phase, for example, it's already at the end stage, right? So different events can happen to determine different actions. And I have here some specific that I will focus on. For example, recurring activity and alert is triggered because you asked me to, okay? So mainly you guys have questions about when to use recurring activity, when to use alerts, okay? And I will show you something new that I'm guessing most of you have already noticed, when of the options of when a card leaves a phase, okay, which is a feedback that we have received. Also, this is a safe space. You can send us product feedbacks, okay, as much as you want. We have a close relationship with our product team, so perhaps we can move a few strings and perhaps we can release a new improvement as soon as we possibly can based on your feedback, okay? So you can send that to us as well. So let's go event by event, right? And we have here examples for each action, right? So for many different automations that you can use. And don't worry, we will send you the record of this whole training afterwards. But most specifically, we will send you this deck. We will send you this presentation in PDF, okay? So you will have access to these examples and you can explore on your own afterwards. So like I always say, guys, a training means nothing if you don't practice afterwards. If you don't go in your automations and you just explore. Here, this is the page that I want you to explore. Okay, I do have my presentation here because of the examples, but this is the page that I want you to focus on. Okay, all of these options is what I'm about to show you, right? And remember, these examples I have considered the main use cases from what you have answered in our form, right? So we have mainly use cases of customer operations, of HR processes, and of IT as well, okay? But if you want something specific regarding finance, regarding, for example, sales, marketing, you can send it to us and we'll try to come up with a good example for you, right? So when a card enters a phase is, I'm not sure if it's just because it's the first option of event that we have, but it's one of the mainly used ones, right? I know that like being the first, most of you are curious to explore it, but it's also like an important event. It's when something in your process moves along. It has like achieved a new stage of the process. We need to end this process. We need to come to the result, right? Whether that's a product, whether that is an evaluation or a service, we need to complete the process. So it needs to move through stages, which is what we call phases inside of Pipefy, right? So if a card enters a phase, you can do all of these actions. I will not have the chance to go over every single one of them due to the time, but I will focus on a few regarding what I've studied in our form, okay? So let's see an example for when a card enters my phase, I wanted to update a field. This is the most common because let's say a request advances in the field of, for example, a request for customer support case, right? So the customer has asked you for a specific bug and it needs to be investigated. We have a field that states, is it investigating? And you can update it to yes, once it moves to the phase that it has reached the certain team, right? Or, for example, you can create a connected card when a card enters a phase. Connection is also an important action and event that they have asked us to cover. So basically, when do we connect pipes and databases so we can interconnect these processes, right? I will use the same example. We're in a customer support case, right? It has come to us that one customer is experiencing a bug. And we've investigated, we've realized that it is related to the IT. We needed to go through IT to cover and answer this customer, right? The support team is not able to do all of this thorough investigation. So if a card enters a phase, it will update the field. Investigating, yes, okay. So then when it enters the next phase, it will create a connected card to another pipe. The other pipe is IT related, IT requests pipe, right? So if it is on the IT pipe, it will go through that team specifically, but it is still present. That card, the main card, which is what we call the father card, right? The parent card, which is like the first card, the main one, the one that originated everything, the parent, it stays on the customer support pipe, right? It stays on the phase that you want based on the process, but a child card, which is connected to this first one, it's in the IT requests. And you can automate your process so much that when it finishes in the IT requests, the IT investigation, basically, like we've identified the bug, we fixed it, it's fine now. The IT can maybe establish an automation to let you know that it's done. And then that child card is all done, but your parent card is not done because the customer doesn't have an answer yet. The customer doesn't know that the bug is fixed. So it will come back to the parent card, and then the parent card in the customer support will finish the process. Oh, but Fernanda, do we need it basically to come back? Do we need something in that other pipe to determine when my card in the customer support moves on? No, we don't. They are independent cards. They can like have independent processes, journeys, you could say. You can, like, the name that we gave is exactly for you to try to understand it like a parent and a child, right? So they will always be connected. Something can happen to the parent and automatically happen to the child, but the child can have a life of its own, right? And the main card, the parent card, can also have a life of its own. But basically, it will take all of the information, all of the genetics, you could say, okay? So this is a way that we can use the connection. Also, a way that we can use the connection is by moving a parent card, right? So here's my example. A child card is created, right? From the child card being created from another pipe will move to investigated. When that happens, the parent card can move to a completed phase in the original pipe. Why is that? That is a different example. So let's say, we don't need the parent card to do anything else. For example, the answer to our customer won't come from our support team. It will come from our IT team, right? It depends on the process, it depends on the company, it depends on your case. But let's suppose here, we've received something from our customer in our support pipe. The support has identified that it's IT related. So it has created another card to go to IT pipe. However, we need to know how many tickets we've received in our support pipe. We need to have record of that. So the card, it stays in the support pipe, right? But we don't need it to do anything else over there because it's a bug, it's IT related, And it's so complicated that the support team won't be able to explain it also to our customer. That needs to come from our IT team, right? In my example. So it will finish the pipe, it will finish the process in the customer support because it's no longer my responsibility in the support. But the IT team has like the main responsibility to investigate and answer my customer. So the child card can finish this process, no problem at all. Okay, the child card can be responsible for that, for example, communication to my customer. But the main card, the parent card, will be completed in the original pipe, right? So basically, I can use these options based on my process, okay? And this is using the event, one of the most simple and most common events, which is when a card enters a phase, okay? We also have, I will drink some water again, 1 second. Guys, being a CS trainer uses a lot more of my voice than I thought. So I'm just drinking the double of water that I used to, but let's go, let's continue. I do see some notifications in the Q&A button, the chat button. I love it. Please continue. Okay, Victor, he knows, like I said, more than I do. So your questions would be very, very useful for us. Let's put his knowledge to use, okay? So the event that I have here, for example, is when the field is updated, right? So I have the same actions that I did in the former event. So basically, I can connect one automation with another. And that is the kind of thought that I want you to have. So when a card enters a phase, I can update a field, can't I? Like the third option here, card enters a phase, update a field. And when that field is updated, I can do something else. I can send an email template, right? I can notify someone when a prioritized field is filled out. Because if that is being prioritized, I need to send every possible notification to that person. So I will send an email template, right? I can move a card. If all of my fields are completed, I can like advance my request. I can move that card to the next phase. Or I can also create a record, right? Which is something that I haven't said before, and also a question that you guys had in the form. So for example, I can create a connected card, right? So that connected card is basically the parent generating a child, right? Because it will always be connected. And I can create a different card. So I can create a separate card that won't have any of the same informations, but I can use that as a trigger and an action, right? I can create, for example, something in the IT pipe, letting them know that we have some updates in the support. They don't need every information, but it's the card just letting them know that we've received, I don't know, a certain number of tickets, right? But I also have the option to create a connected or an independent record. And what's the difference? What's a card? What's a record, right? The card is the request in a process, right? So let's go over here, our famous Pipefy. A card is basically, hold on, I have so many pages open. When I file a request here, right? I don't have any forms, but if I fill out a form and create a new card, the card will stay here. So this is a card in my process. A record is basically a, I will not say that it's a card, but it is something that needs to complete a database, right? So I have some things in Portuguese here, guys, because I'm situated in Brazil. But mainly here, this is in English. I have different suppliers in my suppliers database, right? So supplier W is a record, right? So this is the difference. Some of you did ask me that in the forum. So with these events, correct? The event that the event, the trigger, the action, right? So event is something that needs to happen so that the action can occur. So with every event, with almost every event, I can create a connected record in a database or an independent record in a database, right? So if I have here an example of using kind of the same line. I do have a process of HR, and when a certain field is updated, let's say regarding documents and banking accounts of my employees, right? Once that field is updated, I have every information that I need from my employee. I can create a record in a database that states, for example, information needed for payment, for salary, right? So if I have that information gathered in a pipe, in a card, right? I have Victor's card here with all of his information, but I needed to go through a database because I have so many employees. It's not just Victor. If it was just Victor, I wouldn't need a database, right? I have so many employees. I need to keep record of that, right? I need to keep that on somewhere that I will use eventually for other processes as well. I need to have that on hold. The famous spreadsheet that you don't need once you have Pipefy, right? You don't need like 1,000 spreadsheets, you just need Pipefy. So if you have that database of all the employees and all of the banking information, then your life will be a whole lot easier. And how do you like get all of that information? You can have a pipe, a process. Victor will fill out the information and he will update a field, right? Once that field is updated, then it will automatically create a connected or an independent record in a database, okay? Basically, if you have here, let me go back to the testing pipe. Oh God, I've changed companies. Let me go back to my learning and development. So many companies here, guys. Okay, training. So if I'm in here, if in my basic pipe, I can add a connection, right? So once I add a connection, I can select a pipe that I will connect it to. So that is for the example of creating a connected card, right? I can create connected cards in different pipes or databases. Like I said, the suppliers. If I add this connection and if I add a field of connection, then I can establish this option to create connected records in this database, okay? And the field is right here. So this is how I create the connection. Once the pipes are connected to other pipes or to other databases, I can simply put this field here and I can establish a connection. And that way, when I go to my automations, when I can create something like when the field is updated, right? I do not have fields right now, but I can create a connected card or record, right? So if I choose here any databases or any pipes that are connected to it, then I can establish, right? And I do love these boxes because they are a way to show you if something is stopping you to create this automation, right? So for example, I'm in my training pipe, but it's one that I've just started from scratch. I don't have any fields. So if I don't have any fields, how can I establish an automation that states when a field is updated? I need at least one field, but there's no process without any fields, right? It's just because this pipe isn't configured yet. But this is a way for you to know like how to establish the automation. Also something very useful that I'm not sure everyone of you have already noticed, but you can have here like basically knowledge bills for you to know how to set up this correctly, right? So you can learn how to create connections basically through our help center, okay? This article is actually written by our wonderful Grazi, because she's from our support team. She knows everything as well. And it is very clear, okay? So like I do get many requests asking for me to, we will have a training on this soon, hopefully, okay? I'm trying to organize this very soon because connection is something that you have asked me before. But this article already shows you so much, like so many questions that you send me can be answered through this article, okay? So it's just also a way for you to understand a little more. But let's go back to our events and actions, all right? Remember, guys, if you have specific questions, if you have any comments, you can send it to us here, Q&A button or our chat button, okay? Okay, so when a card is created, it's like the second most common one, okay, mainly that we see here being used as an event, because it's exactly when the process begins. So like it's the first things that we need to do once the my process begins, right? So let's suppose here that every every request that is being created must pass the initial phase, but if it has one specific field filled out, it can move to the next phase. Okay, how does that work? This is the example that I'm using here is when a card is created, it will move a card. And this is one that is really asked of me as well, because like when a card is created, it automatically goes to the first phase, correct? Why do I need it to move to a second phase? I need it to go through my first phase first, right? Not necessarily. Let's suppose here that my initial phase is an investigation regarding the bug, right? But it's not a new bug. It's a bug that I'm receiving many tickets already from my customers. So it's something that is already reported. So my first phase needs to exist, of course, because it needs to know that if it's a new bug or not, right? So it might happen that I might receive a ticket from a customer reporting a new bug, but it's not. It's something that is already reported. Then I can have, for example, the card is created and it will, for example, notify someone, and that someone will know if the bug is reported or not, or it can analyze this through the process, right? So for example, based on the answers that my customer fills out in the form, we will know if that bug is already reported or not. Or it will send an email template to someone, and that is how the person will know, oh, okay, this bug is already reported. I can also establish that automation that if this specific field is completed, then it will move to the next phase. And how do I do that? Because it's not a simple automation. It has conditionals, right? Because it's not that every card that is created will move to the next phase. It's that the cards that are created and have this specific field filled out will move to the next phase, right? So I can have, for example, a condition. Okay, so here, I'm guessing most of the things that I will try to, I will not complete any automations necessarily, but if I do, it might appear that orange box for me, okay? But don't mind that, it's just, I'm just using this interface as something more practical, all right? And you will have the time to speak as well and tell us your questions, all right? But here, for example, the card is created in my pipe and follows such condition, right? So I can select a field if I had a field, right? Or I can have general attributes from that card. So for example, if it was created at today, okay, so if my card was created today, it can move to the next phase. Or if it was created, I don't know, last week, current month, whatever it is that you want to add as a condition, okay? You can add something as and, so both scenarios are conditions. So let's suppose here, this general attribute is basically something that I don't need to be in a field. It's basically something that Pipefy understands from the card. So it knows when it was created, it knows who it was created by, it knows the current phase, it knows the due date, basically something that doesn't depend on fields, okay? So, and the assignee is me. So I do need both of these conditions to move on to establish my automation, okay? It needs to be created today and it needs to be assigned. I need to be the assignee, okay? But I can also add a condition of or, right? So if I add more conditions to this specific group, I'm adding conditions by and. Like both of these scenarios needs to happen. So if I add another thing, 3 of these things need to happen so that the condition is considered, right? but I can also, I will actually erase that just so I can show you. Here in add another group, that means it's or, the and logic, right? So I can say here that the assignee is me, or it's not me. Let me just use it. It's not me, right? So if the date of the card is today, date of the card meaning when it was created. Okay, if the card was created today, then my automation will happen. Or if the assignee is me, then the automation will also happen. So these two conditions are very separate. Okay, then that means that I don't need both of those conditions to happen. I just need one of those to happen, but it's either or. Okay, so this is also something that we need to understand by knowing every possibility that we have in automations. All right, I do understand that this example is a little more complicated. Do not be shy. There is no stupid questions. Okay, you can ask us anything that you want. I will move on to the next event, but you can feel free to send us anything that you'd like. And like I said, this presentation will be available to you, okay? And of course, my email as well, Victor's email, you can send us any questions, all right? I love this one. I love this one so much because you don't use it. Most of you don't use it. And I'm just, I don't know why. I need to understand why I don't use it, because it's an amazing option that we have. It's so amazing that we have few actions from it, because it can get a little tricky, right? So I'm judging you, but I do understand that it's a little more complicated to use. I only love this one because I have studied it so much, right? So my tip for you is study it, explore it, okay? Test it. You guys don't pay per pipe, okay? So you can have as many test pipes as you want, so that you don't need to actually affect your process. You don't need to impact your process like in anything. You can create a test pipe. You can add whoever you want in that pipe and just use it. Feel free to use it as much as you want. You can create automations, enable it to see if it works, and then disable it, right? If it does work, if you see that it's fit for your process, then you can replicate it in your own pipes, right? But this is in an amazing way that you don't pollute your automations that are actually very useful, that are vital to your processes, but you can practice in another test pipe, for example, right? You can create test databases, like everything that you want. So this automation, I do have actually one very important slide after I go through these possibilities, which in which I have gathered very important data, hopefully to you as well, regarding how do you use this recurring activity? How much do you use and how much do you find it valuable, okay? So the only options of actions that we have here with a recurring activity is to create a card, create a record, or to move a card, okay? And these examples here, I wanted to go over both of them actually. So let's suppose you need to check if a data science process is running smoothly every Monday, because it's usually a process that that needs to be thoroughly checked, right? So a new request with the same details, you can think about it like a card, right? Card has informations, so that is a request. The same details need to be checked for that process, and it needs to be opened with an established frequency. I've actually already given a similar example before, because my HR team needs to send an email every Monday. They need to send an email every month. They need to send an email every, for example, pre-holiday, right? And they need to send something, I'm sorry, pre-weekend, right? They need to send something, let's suppose here, every first day of the month, to wish them a new, a happy, a bright, clear month ahead. So I can use these examples like in the process that I want, But basically what a recurring activity is something that happens with an established frequency. Okay, it is a little complicated regarding the few options that I have, because I don't have, for example, the option to update a field because it can generate a loop, right? So if I have a recurring activity, for example, to update a field every hour, then that will generate so many automation jobs and it can create a loop. So we do these to protect the process, to protect the whole operation. But you do have like workarounds through the recurring activity, right? So if I'm sorry here, if I go on a recurring activity, I can establish this frequency, okay? I can send, for example, this email every Monday, but Fernanda, I don't have here every Monday. What do I do? Every day. At what time I can step, oops, I'm sorry. I do can have every week, I'm sorry, Monday, right? If I need to send it, for example, every day at 3 p.m., then I can establish the time, okay? And here I have the information of the UTC time zone. You can learn how that works as well, all right? So if I need to do it that every Monday, then it means that the frequency is weekly, right? If I need to do it every first day of the month, then it's every month. So which day? The 10th, right? So if I can establish here, or I can send it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can also establish a time. So this is something that I can use to, for example, create a card in a different pipe, right? Here, this is how this other pipe has informations. They have fields. So if I do have that connection, I can create a card in the other pipe, right? So I can also have the option to move a card. So within that same logic, like the data science process is, I need to check if it's running smoothly every Monday, right? So I will create a card in this process with the details that need to be filled out so I know that it is running smoothly, right? But for example, I need this card to be moved to a finalized phase every Friday. So I can establish, let's suppose, a different event that, for example, if all of the fields are updated in this card, then I will move my card to the final phase. But I don't need it every field to be updated. In fact, some fields might not be updated, and that is how I will know if it's running smoothly or not. But it's an activity that I have to do every week. So I know that my card needs to be created every Monday, right? And I do know that this operation needs to run like in business days. And I need it to be finished by Friday. I need this card to be finalized every Friday, right? So I can do that as well. I can establish here that every Friday, right, this card will be moved to a different phase in a different pipe, okay? So here, if I use the same pipe, I just need to select the final phase, for example. All right. And what did I mean by when I said workarounds? I can establish a recurring activity every Monday to create a card in a certain pipe. But I also need like this to determine my email being sent, right? So that is the first example that I used. The recurring activity. I need to send an email every Monday to my employees. But Fernanda, you don't have the option to send an email. I actually do. I have the recurring activity to create a card. I also have the recurring activity to move a card. And if this happened, if the action occurred, if every Monday the card moved or the card was created, then that means I have the option to create another automation. That when a card is created, that when a card is moved, enters or leaves a phase, that is basically the movement, that is all originated from an event. So the event like resulted in one of these two actions, right? So these actions can also be events. I just keep pressing on the X button. Oh my God. So for example, if the card is created, I can send an email template, right? So I can also establish here and follows these conditions. For example, the condition of when the card was created, or if I use this for example, a recurring activity creates a card, and then I can have that card being created with a specific field in a specific, be moved to a specific phase. So for example, the card enters a phase. Which phase? The phase that I selected. I can send an email template. Okay. So basically, guys, it's impossible for me to give you every example. What I want is for you to understand the possibilities that you have and explore on your own, like I said. Okay, so do not be afraid to test this to see if the recurring activity works for you, because I know it will be useful to a lot of you once you explore it correctly. Okay. Let's move on to my other favorite. This actually might be my main favorite because it has many action options. Okay, so in this one, we can have fun with this one, but you still don't use it enough. And I think it is mainly because of the SLAs, because I think that you understand, like based on the researches that we have, especially with that form that I showed you with our workshop pre-work, right? We do know that you understand SLA, but not exactly how this SLA can work within the automations, right? So we have here in our help center like the most important article that we can have regarding alerts. Okay, also written by our wonderful Grazi. So we have 3 different types of alerts here in Pipefy. We have overdue, we have late, and we have expired. So when I create an automation with the event alert, I need to select the type of alert: overdue, late, expired. Okay, so like the first thing that we need is to understand this difference, right? So in here, it's very practical. Overdue, I do know that it is regarding a card. Okay, so the overdue is basically when a card exceeds its due date. Okay, so you can see basically the due date within the card. Okay, and it also like it appears a label, and it also states by the form, by the field that you choose to be in the form, right? So if we go here, now I need to close it, and we go to due date, the due date field, I'll just name it due date. Once I fill out this field, I will know when my card is overdue. Okay, so that is me establishing an SLA for my card. All right. I also have the option of late alert, right? So that means the maximum time that a card stays in a phase. So like you can think of, we have different types of alerts because there are different steps to a process. We have a card in a process, we have phases in a process, and we have the whole process, right? So these options have different SLAs. So my card, my request, for example, it's up until next week, right? But my doing phase, so basically my middle phase over here, it has an SLA of 2 days. What does that mean? That means that my card can only stay in this phase for 2 days. If it stays longer than that, it's late, right? So my middle phase needs to happen within 2 days. The card the request can be finished within a week, but this phase, it can only stay for 2 days, okay? So I can go here in each phase, and I can go on advanced options, right? I'm not sure that most of you have explored this. There is other ways for you to change. I do love to say this. I say this in every training. There are infinite ways for you to get to the same solution in Pipefy. So like there are like, I can go here on automations, which is where I was when I clicked on here, right? So like there in here, I can change the color of my face, right? But where I was, I can also do that. So like I have infinite ways of doing that. But if I'm here in my advanced options, I have many configurations to establish within a face. I can actually describe what this face is, so that the people that are new to the process, for example, can understand. I can even allow a card being created within this phase, right? I can collect email addresses within this phase, also something that you have more information on here. It's also like a safety protocol that we recommend you doing, but you don't actually need to. It's your option. I can add assignees to a specific phase as well. But now it's the main thing that I want to focus on, which is basically determine the time that a card can stay in the phase. So I can even establish that it can stay here for a year, but actually I need it to stay for 2 days, and I can save it, right? So once that card enters here and it oversees, like it exceeds the 2 days, then it will be late. That means that the alert will be triggered, right? You remember here? The late alert will be triggered. If it overpasses the week that I said my card needs to be, like the request can only last 1 week. So if it will be solved in 2 weeks from now, then it's overdue, right? Once it passes this week, it's already overdue. But I also have one final option. I have the option of expired. What is expired? Basically, once you've already established the SLA for the card and the SLA for the phase, I need to know the maximum period of time that a card can stay in a pipe. So until being moved to the final phase, because it's done, the final phase, it's done, right? So let's suppose here, a request can't take more than 30 days to run through a purchase process, correct? So I filed a purchase process for like a week from now. I need it to be, my due date is a week from now. So that can be overdue. But the purchase process, my request can be overdue, but not necessarily expired. Because in the purchase process, we have a whole month to do that, right? Or my pipe can actually be a very quick process, and the SLA for the pipe, the expired alert, is 5 days. So my card, if it takes up to a week, like if it takes 6 days to complete my request, then my card isn't overdue, correct? The alert for overdue is not triggered because it was 7 days. But the expired, a trigger, it can be set because my SLA for the pipe was 6 days, right? So if it takes more than 6 days, if it takes 6 days and 1 minute, then it's already expired, right? So how do I configure that? The phases, you remember, right? Advanced options. The expired is in pipe settings, okay? Also many options here. We can establish the title and subtitles of the cards that appear in our Kanban view, right? We have many options here. We can have the text for when the card is created, when the form is filled out. So I can have here the option of establishing 6 days, okay? And I can also select these alerts to count from Monday to Friday, all right? So if you do have any questions regarding this SLA, please let us know, all right? Let me go back here to automations. So basically, I can determine, one of the main use cases that we have here is to send an email template, okay? Or to create a connected card. Because when an alert is triggered, it's basically something that in most cases we don't want to happen. We don't want it to happen, right? But we need to have that set up, right? So it's something that we need to be aware of, even though we don't want it to happen. We don't want our cards to be overdue. We don't want a card to stay longer in the phase than it should. And we definitely don't want a process to run longer than it actually can. But if a certain alert is triggered, you can choose what action you want to be taken, So you can send an email template to the responsible, to the leader, for example. You can create a connected card in a different process to let them know that it's late. Okay, you can update a field. So you can have a field created just for this, like needs to be prioritized, and you will choose to prioritize it when it's late or when it's expired or when it's overdue. Okay, so you have many options here to go from. Okay. And I was waiting to get to this one. This is not my favorite. I do love this one, not my favorite, but it is our newest, not newest, because actually our product team is working very hard. So we do have very important releases coming to you soon. In fact, I will just leave this spoiler here. Our training for next month will be unbelievable. Victor doesn't even know about it. So it's like, yeah, it's very, very secretive. However, you will be notified soon, okay? And it is for a release that we have. Some of you have already experienced this launch, okay? But basically, our product has been updating a few improvements on our page, on our platform, that has come from marketing needs or basically your feedback, right? So your suggestions regarding our improvements is very important. And this is one that I've received for so long here at Pipefy, which is basically to increase the options of actions for the event when a card leaves a phase, right? So when a card leaves a phase, we had as many options of actions as recurring activity. Okay, we are also working on adding more actions to this one, but like I said, it has the matter with the looping, right? So this is mainly a safety default. But this one, we didn't really had much explanation, like many explanations to understand why it didn't have as many actions. The thing that made the most sense when like we really studied our product was that when a card enters a phase, we have every option. So that is also why this one is the mainly used one, because not necessarily we have examples that this is not necessarily true, but like when a card leaves a phase, it enters another one, right? So we can use this one as well. However, we do understand that there are many use cases that we need to use the event of when it leaves a phase, right? So the examples are very similar to when a card enters a phase, right? But this one we can also use for like leaving a phase, but not necessarily moving on, right? So we already have automations regarding when a card enters a phase, and we can't actually risk like, it's like the looping, but we can't risk a card like not communicating with another one. So we need this entering of the phase be separated from when the card leaves a phase. We need separate things to happen, right? So when a card enters a phase, we need it to send an email. But when it leaves a phase, we need it to actually update a different field. Okay, so these are options that you can use as well. I will have some water again. And this is also a great example, guys, of how an action is also an event, okay? So like I said, event, action. The event is triggered, the action occurs. However, you saw that in all of my, basically all of my examples, you have the option of action of sending an email template, correct? You also have email is received as an event. So basically, it's like I said, with the workaround in the recurring activity, if an email is received, something else can happen. Okay, so I don't actually necessarily need, for example, when a card leaves a phase, I will send an email template. But when that email is received, that I need to move the card. I need to know if that email was received. I can't necessarily assume that the card leaves a phase, it will send an email template and it will move the card, because let's suppose that I have a problem with the email that is being sent out to. I will need to be sure that the email was received. Then you can establish this automation. that when an email is received, you can then do something else. Okay? Any questions, you can send it through our Q&A button, through our chat button. I'm not looking at that right now. This is why we have Victor. But any feedbacks, we are completely open to it. Okay? Any suggestions as well. In fact, like I said, next month's training is very special. I will not change that because I'm really much looking forward to it. But we do have other monthly trainings coming up because we have them at the end of every month. So if you have any suggestions of topics that you want us to cover, please send it to us. Okay, that is very important. All right. So this is the last event that we have. That is when all connected cards are moved to a phase. I understand this is the most complex, right? Because it involves connections. Also the less used one. But what I found most interesting, it's not one that you see, for example, much value in, considering the other options that we have. And I agree, because this is mainly for connected processes that happen simultaneously, right? So the event is all of the connected cards are moved to a certain phase. So it's not if one child card moves to a phase. It's basically if the parent and children, because it can have more than one child card, right? One main card, for example, one parent card can have many connected cards to it. So if all connected cards are moved to a phase, of course, I can establish conditions for that, right? So I can establish that, for example, I have the event of all connected cards, but in the conditions, I can select them. I can determine which cards will be moved by, for example, the date that they were created, by the fields that they have. Like I said in here, in the conditions, I have many options to choose from. If it has any labels, right? I don't have any labels in my process, but, or if it's not, if it doesn't have any labels. So basically every condition that I can think of, I can establish in the automations, but this is only valuable if you have this interconnected process. I agree that it's not the most valuable. However, I only agree to that because it's not every use case that has connected processes yet. I do dream of one day in Pipefy, everyone having connected processes. And in that, when that happens, it will be pretty difficult to determine which automation is the most valuable one, because each and every one of them has their potential to help with different kinds of actions as well. Okay. So these examples are a little more complex, like I said. But for example, I can update the solved field, right, to yes when both of the cards move to a final phase. This is a fairly simple example. So if I use that example of the customer support case, I have the parent card in the customer support and I have the child card in the IT request. Both of them have fields that state, is it solved? If they are moved to a final phase, then I will update this field by saying yes, right? By clicking on yes. So that means that all of my connected cards, the parent and the child, were moved to a final phase, a done phase. Like, is it solved? Did we get any feedback? Like, have we assured that it won't happen again? Either field, like whatever field that you can think of, it can be updated, right? So this is also just one example. Okay, guys, I hope that was like this part of the training was helpful. I do understand it took a while because I wanted to be thorough, okay, with the examples. We do have a few more minutes here. Actually, I think we can stay like until it's 10 a.m. PST right now, so like up until 11. But we're here to answer your questions. Okay, I do have more information coming, but now is the time that I want you to explore and already just tell us every thought that comes to your head regarding feedback and regarding like possibility that we have. Okay. This is the part that I love. I love some data, and I think this is very important for us to understand, like mainly what we're using, right? So based on the research that we have, 82% of you use a card answers a phase as an event, right? The most in your automations, which is why I said it's the most common, right? Basically, every research that we have state this. And 79% of you use send an email template as the action of your automations. You know why this is interesting? Because communication is very important in our processes, okay? Actually, you guys, we had a training in communications last month. So this month we're focusing on automations, but in May, we organized a training for communications in your processes. Victor, would you mind sending here the onboarding page? And we have onboarding/webinars. So Victor will send here on our chat. And in this page, you can find every webinar that we've hosted. So besides our Pipefy Academy that I will speak about soon, we have this page in which you can watch basically every training that we've organized so far. Okay. Also here, like I said, very important to notice, 380% of you use recurring activity event the least in your automations. So that seems like a low percentage, but actually like even less of you use other events the least. So this is like the least used automations in our research. And move the parent card is the least least used action in our automations. So that refers to connections and, like I said, the recurring activity. Okay. So also an observation based on the first sentence that I told you, most of you, like 84% of you, consider that a card is created is the most valuable for your processes. And that is not the most commonly used. The most commonly used is when it enters a phase, but I do understand this because it determines when a process begins. So if a process begins, something needs to happen, right? And perhaps more than, most of the time, more than one action needs to happen. So that is the most valuable for you. And 85% of you consider send an email template the most valuable for your process, which is also the most used one. Okay, so that also makes sense. And this also refers to the most of you, right? So 78% of you would like to learn more about the possibilities of recurring activity and alert is triggered, which is the one that I try to focus on. Okay, so basically, these events are not highly used, but you do want to use it. That is what you've told me, basically. So hopefully you will get the chance to explore more of those. And if you do have any questions, we are always available. All right. And 84% of you would like to learn more about the possibilities of updating card or record, right? So which is also something that I try to focus on here by the action. Okay. So do you have any questions regarding these events and actions? Do you completely disagree with this data? I am open to this opinion, okay, because you perhaps are not like part of the 84%. So let me know if you disagree. Let me know if there's anything that comes to mind and we can cover here, okay? So guys, I do have one very important piece of information here, which is why I need to send this PDF for you as soon as possible. But Victor will also send the link for this course, okay? I just feel like we need to really focus on this course as most as we possibly can, because many of you have not finished this course yet, and it is so valuable. It is so good, okay? So our product team has organized this hacks and tricks course. Guys, I took the course and there were things that I didn't know. And like, I find that out every day. I'm fairly good at Pipefy. I've like explored the product enough. I feel like I know it by heart, but I see things here in our product team that I will always be surprised by what Pipefy can show me, right? So I'm here in my login, so I've already done this course, okay? But I've already done all of them, as you can see. But here in Hacks and Tricks, you just need to enroll in Pipefy Academy, okay? We have a part that is only automation, okay? Guys, I mean, can you see the time here? Like seriously, like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 7, like this one is the most valuable one because it it explains the connections, right? So it is the most thorough one, and it's 7 minutes, like literally not enough time, not even like to have a coffee, right? So that is very useful for us, okay? And I highly suggest you sending these to all of your teammates who know Pipefy. Send it like to everyone who even wants to learn more about the possibilities of Pipefy, because you can even understand why something didn't work when you've tried it, for example. So there was one time, like the very beginning when I was learning Pipefy, that I could not bulk delete via the recurring activity automation. And that was very complicated for me because it's also a use case that I didn't show you. But with the recurring activity, I can basically delete, like I can have bulk delete, which is basically deleting a lot of cards at the same time, for example, right? So I have many options that I really don't know about, right? So I can also understand why a card wasn't moved by automation. So like I've established here, for example, okay, that when a field is updated, I will move a card. So I think that everything's okay with my automation, and then I figure out that the card wasn't moved. Spoiler, one of the things that I need to check is my move card settings. If I enable a card to go from doing, to inbox and to done, then I should have no problem. But let's suppose it can't go back, right? My card isn't doing, it can only be moved to done. But in my automation, I established it to move to inbox. However, it's disabled it. Then the automation won't run because something stops it, right? So this course is amazing. You will figure out so much, but you also have some things that don't involve automation. For example, some hacks and tricks that involve email communication. So like it doesn't involve automation, and yet it does, because I have automations to send email templates. And I do need some hacks and tricks to use the most that I can, like from my email communication. So I have, it's not difficult, guys. It's not like, I mean, it was difficult, I mean, by saying like, it's not about integrations, it's not about APIs, it's something that a no code, even low code, but this course is basically no code, okay? So a no code person, a not very tech savvy person can absolutely learn and do a lot with, all right? So it's here, the link is here, and you can please enroll and complete it because I'm pretty sure it will help you. All right. So guys, this time, now we have kind of an open Q&A time. If there is anything that you like to tell us, if there's anything that you like to ask, feel free to do so. If there's anything that you like us to go over. Okay, I've also have here, just so you know, that our open office hours happens every Wednesday, okay, at 11 a.m. PST. So today's Tuesday, and we have this tomorrow. Actually, we have this tomorrow with two very, very product specialists joining us. So you can, Victor, I'm not sure if you have the link, but it's also in the onboarding page, okay? So the onboarding page that Victor sent here, he sent the page regarding webinars. If you go only to the onboarding page, you have the training for the open office hours. And what does that mean? That is basically two product specialists. Sometimes we have our CSMs, sometimes we have our sales engineers, and basically every product specialist is available, but we like two of them join at a time, so two every Wednesday, and they are free. They are free for 30 minutes to understand whatever you want. So you can join, you can ask your questions. If your question is a little more complicated to explain, you can open your mic and you can explain to them. Sometimes like there are a lot more people joining, but there usually isn't many people because it happens weekly. So literally every Wednesday. Okay. So I mean, feel free to join anytime that you want. It's also for 30 minutes. So like if a person is asking something and it takes them like 5-10 minutes like tops to answer them, then it's your turn to ask. Okay, so no one like takes up the whole time. So it's basically free for you to join at any time. All right. So like my point now is basically for us to do an open office if you'd like, right? So we are available. Victor, would you like to compliment with something?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you everyone who's still here with us. And as Fernanda mentioned, it's really important now for us just to, we know that we share a lot of good information, but it is a lot of information that we can try.
Yeah.
So we have the hacks and tricks training, we have our onboarding page. So I think the idea, as Fernanda mentioned at the beginning, the important thing is to know about those features and those things that we can accomplish with Pipefy. But most important is to train, is to try new things, is to see how can we improve our processes. And for that, we have also all of our support links that we sent, but we do have our CSM. So if you do have an account manager, if your account manager is me, feel free to reach me out. Feel free to reach all your account managers to try new things, to try new processes. So as I mentioned, the connection between processes is really good. So if you do have this necessity, feel free to reach us out, the whole Pipefy team. It will be a pleasure. And now I think it's a open mic session. We're here just to see if someone has other questions or something that we can connect with.
Yeah, I'll send actually also my email in the chat. So I am not a support specialist, guys, but I am friends with the support specialist. So if you have any question specific, I can forward your request to our support team and I can actually follow up with them. Okay. So I'm guessing most of you have a CSM, have an AGM, and you can send it directly to them. But as a CS trainer, I'm also very responsible for your usage of Pipefy, for the possibilities that I've asked you to explore, right? So I can help you with any questions that you want. I'm also responsible for the open office hours. Okay, so any suggestions that you have, perhaps of a different time, of a different day, anything will be heard, okay, and will be considered. So that is very important to us as well. Okay, so this is my email. Like I said, I saw some familiar faces here, so I'm guessing some of you already have my email, but feel free to send me anything that you like. All right. Victor, I'm not sure if you sent them the link for the help center as well.
No, the help center, no, just the specific articles that you mentioned throughout the training.
Okay, perfect. So if you go to these specific articles, which is already very helpful, you can basically access our help center, right? So just helppipefy.com in English, and you have here many options. In fact, if you just type out automations, a lot of useful content, okay? Like a lot. And the same with our Pipefy academies, like Hacks and Trick, I do believe is our most valuable course in there right now. But let's suppose that you're just getting started with our product, or you have a teammate, or maybe, for example, someone in that you are leading that needs to learn more about Pipefy. We have a learning path. We have a course on process management, which is also a highly taken course. Okay. And also important to mention, guys, every course that you do in Pipefy Academy leads you with a certificate. Okay, so you have evidence of your Pipefy knowledge once you are done with everything. Okay. This is my, yes, okay. So you also have the options here of a learning path, right? The other ones are in Portuguese, basically the same versions, okay? Let us know if you have any questions.
Don't be shy, everyone. We're
Do
here
not
to
be
help.
shy. Like I said, literally any question is useful. Sometimes we learn with your questions.
Exactly.
In fact, the Hacks and Tricks course originated from your questions, okay? Because like we've been learning day by day that everything is possible with Pipefy, basically. And what isn't possible yet, hopefully will be soon based on the launches that we've been having, right? So I do know that someone sent here on the chat about our Pipefy AI, which is our option of artificial intelligence. And that is a huge spoiler for our next training. Okay, that is all that I will leave you with, but we will learn very soon more about how to use this incredible feature that we have now. Okay, I think we have a questions here in the Q&A. 1 second, I'm opening. Wow, wonderful question. Is there a cost for the Pipefy Academy courses? There is not. Okay, so if you go to Pipefy Academy, all of these courses are completely free. Okay, that is very important to mention. Let me go here to our onboarding page. So this is the main page that I asked Victor to send it to you, right? So here we have our live trainings, which is basically the webinars. Okay, so this is the one that I told you that we did in May. So we have here also one that we hosted in March. Actually, the one that we hosted in April isn't showing. So I need to check why that isn't happening. But we actually did a training on automations as well. It wasn't like this one. It was less practical and more focused on the logic, right? And we explained a little bit about how it worked and the plans and everything else. But here you have the option of like learning a little bit more about every feature that you can think of. Okay. In fact, in September of last year, we hosted one on Hacks and Tricks, and you can see the difference between this one and our course because our course is newer. So we have like different hacks and tricks based on product improvements that we've done so far. Okay. Also, this one is very, very watched. Okay. Reports by our wonderful Isabelle, who's our ISM. So she's mainly focused on implementation for our customers, and she knows everything from reports. And this training is also very good. Okay. So within our onboarding page, besides the webinars, we have here the option for you to access our learning path. So this is how you access the Pipefy Academy as well. Online courses, right? It's for free. Guys, I mean, 1 hour and a half, that is basically to do like every course, okay? Because the videos are so short and yet so with like so much knowledge in it, and you will understand so much in such in a small amount of time. So that is like the main focus of our Pipefy Academy, is to teach you with like practicality and efficiency, okay? So it's all free. And also here, the open office session, okay? So we have here in English, we also have the option of Spanish, and we also have them in Portuguese. But the English one is like advanced and basic, okay? So you can literally show up in our open office asking what is a pipe, what is a card, and we will answer you. Or you can ask us about APIs, about GraphQL, about integrations, and we can answer you as well. All right, our help center is also here. Okay, so we will directly direct you to our help center like I showed you. We have a page here showing our main features, right? So basically a short video explaining to you every feature that we have. And we have our community, we have a YouTube channel. In case you don't know about the community, we always post about our trainings over there, our product releases, and it's also a safe space for Pipefy users to share what they've been doing, something that they have experienced within the product. So they can also see if the person has a solution for their problem, or if they have come up with a product suggestion together. So I think that is a very good place to be. Let me just open here. So here, Community Pipefy. Okay, so we have a space here. We also have some news. Here it is. Pipefy AI. See, so if you want to learn more, how about you join our community? And they are all very excited, okay? So this is somewhere also you can have news from our product and from our team. And we have here the trainings is basically we have an admin training, okay? So basically conducted by our implementation team, you can understand a little more of this control and permissions regarding administrators, okay? And like I said, the Q&A sessions, which is the open office hours, all right? This is basically our onboarding page. Any specific questions? Marina is also from our team. Okay, so she's been answering you, some of you through our chat. So to those who are still here, what did you think of this training? Did you enjoy it? Do you want something like this next month as well? Perhaps a workshop on a different feature? Let us know, okay? Also, if you haven't answered our pre-work form, I will send it right here. It's still very valuable for us to know, okay? So basically, we always want to know the most valuable features, but considering automation, the most valuable events and actions that you can use within your processes, okay? So I put here every option that you have, and you can let us know. Also here, if you didn't already know the basics of automations, you kind of needed to know for our training. So we had here a review of the whole content, right? So we explained a little bit about the trigger event, about the action. We had a few screenshots here and somewhere, of course, directing to our help center, all right? We still have a minute left if you have any questions that aren't answered yet, okay? If you still have any curiosities. Yeah.
We're here. I think we got one.
We do?
I think. Oh yeah, Marina's answering on it.
Okay, Marina's answering. I think it's someone that sent through our chat.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's it. If you don't have any other questions, Victor, would you like to say anything to those who are still here?
Yeah, so thank you again, everyone. And once again, won't be repetitive, but you can reach out to us in order to try those new things that you learned today. Fair, send her email. For those who don't know me or just want to know me, I will send you my email as well, or you can connect directly to your CSM or AGM on your account, okay?
Thank you. So everyone, I will send you the recording for this training and the PDF. So you can always come back to our examples and explore the most that we have to offer within our automations.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, everyone.
See you soon. Bye-bye, guys.